Good morning, everybody. I'm Saagar Enjeti.
Hey, and I'm Jamal Simmons. Welcome to Rising. You would notice that Buck and Crystal are not here. We are not Buck and Crystal.
So it's the Bro Show. But lots going on here today here in Washington. We have the president and Nancy Pelosi who are sniping at each other. Once again, the president moved to declassify. And what are you looking at, Jamal?
We've also got Theresa May taking off out of Great Britain. So Brexit is on the horizon. And we're going to talk a little bit more about all the craziness happening in Washington.
Love it.
All that's next on Rising. Man, there's so much going on in the news today. I can't even keep track of all this stuff, but I know you got something that's on your mind. So I'm going to let you get started first. I'm going to check my tweets.
So what I'm looking at is the flip side on the last 2 years. And what that means is that President Trump has moved to declassify documents, not directly, that are related to the 2016 presidential election. Last night, the president tweeted that he was going to allow the Attorney General to conduct a review of many of these election-related documents on the FISA warrant, on the FBI, within the Department of Justice. And what this is leading to is it's going to let it all out there in the open. Something that I have been a big fan of, something that I've been a big advocate for on this show, which is the transparency of this investigation. How did opposition research, Democratic opposition research, become the main crux on which a FISA warrant was pursued on an American citizen? The president has not been able to declassify because of the ongoing Mueller investigation. Now we know after the Mueller report has come out that there was no collusion, that he at least left the obstruction decision up to the Attorney General, who found that there was no obstruction. Ultimately, I do believe that this move by the president will restore America's faith in their intelligence agencies. You know, Jamal, I was actually just thinking the other day, I remember in the mid-2000s when I visited Washington, D.C. as a kid, that there were all these FBI hats all around.
Yeah.
And the FBI hats have been replaced by Make America Great Again hats. I don't know what that says, but it's interesting because I was thinking about it and I was like, the FBI used to be the cornerstone of America's faith in its political institution. It was this agency keeping us safe post 9/11. And for it to have had its reputation dragged through the mud throughout the 2016 campaign, I think has really done a disservice to the American people.
Well, here's the thing. As somebody who comes from a city like Detroit and comes from a family that was involved in civil rights politics, the FBI didn't always have that perceived reputation.
Fair, absolutely, yeah.
You know, in the old days, the FBI was certainly known to be, the Hoover days, known to be a political institution. What's happened since then is that there were a bunch of reforms made and people thought the FBI was acting more non-politically. Look, I would never say the FBI shouldn't get looked at. I think somebody's got to always watch these investigative agencies. But at the same time, we shouldn't be turning loose the law enforcement investigative powers of the presidency on the president's political enemies. And that is something for every patriot to be worried about. When a commander-in-chief, the sole person, begins to act like one of these third world dictators and despots and starts sicking the police forces on his political opponent.
That's why I think he did it the right way, which was kicking it to the Attorney General, allowing the DOJ to have their own review of this, and then let it go out there from a bureaucratic investigative process, rather than, because I don't disagree, it could be a problem for the president to directly declassify whatever he wants without any sort of interagency review. So I think that's the right way to go about it.
This is the same Attorney General.
I knew this was coming.
This is the same Attorney General who said there was no obstruction problem without even having looked at the underlying evidence in the case that was made by Robert Mueller.
Well, we can relitigate that one another day. So what's on your radar?
All right. So I've been watching President Trump since the last couple of years, and I'm reminded of this 1970s movie Patton, starring George C. Scott. In the opening scene, General George Patton gives a big speech on his fighting philosophy and how he believes Americans love to fight. President Trump seems to believe the same thing. The president's been fighting with the Justice Department, started a trade war with China, and now he's engaged in a constitutional battle with Speaker Pelosi and congressional Democrats. The whole movie seems too long to play here, but I suggest everybody go watch it. I asked the team to put together a few moments from Old Blood and Guts that might remind you of our current Commander-in-Chief. Here's Patton on the kind of guys he thinks win wars.
That no bastard ever won war by dying for his country. He won it by making the other poor dumb bastard die for his country.
He's not a war hero.
He's a war hero.
He's a war hero.
5.5 years.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you.
Sound familiar? And here's the dynamic duo on winning.
Americans love a winner and will not tolerate a loser.
Yeah, we're winning it. You know what? You want to know something? You want to know something? We always win. We always win.
And here they both are on losers.
That's why Americans have never lost and will never lose a war. Because the very thought of losing is hateful to Americans.
He's been a loser for a long time. You talk about somebody that's a loser. She doesn't know what the hell she's doing. I never want to be called a loser.
And there's just so much more we can go into. But the president may love to win, and he never wants to be called a loser. But have you seen the latest matchups against the Democratic field? President Trump can't get more than 41% against any opponent. And if that stays true, loser is exactly what we'll be calling him come next November. So I'm telling you, Saagar, I think Donald Trump sits around watching scenes from Patton the way my wannabe gangster friends used to sit around and watch Scarface and The Godfather when we were teenagers.
I mean, I've heard this caricature of Trump for a long time, but I mean, he's the one who's sitting in the Oval Office, right? I mean, he's the one who eviscerated the entire Republican field. And it maybe with these matchups, again, it's very early. I never really trust a lot of the polling on Donald Trump. Maybe I shouldn't say that since we work for a news organization which commissions a lot of polls, but there are, the secret Trump voter, the way that you can delve into the matchups on Trump versus many of these Democratic opponents, there's just so little lack of information that you can't transpose to 2 years out.
We got a lot of time coming up when it comes to figuring out the election, but I will tell you, when you start putting names of real live human beings up against the president, those polls matter more to me than just the generic job approval, the generic personal favorability number. And I think we're starting to see, as people lock in a little bit on some of these candidates, that, you know what, compared to a reasonable Democratic choice, the president's in pretty tough shape.
All right. Well, we'll see how the reasonable Democratic choice fares after 2 years of attacks by the president. I've watched him as well for a long time, and I don't think that it'll slide so easy into Election Day.
All right. Well, we will see. Next on Rising, the first person to be convicted of a crime in the war on terror has been released.
But some are outraged, saying he hasn't renounced any of his extremist beliefs, and the controversy over the man known as the American Taliban when we return.